Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory video, and today guys we're going to be talking about something completely different. We're going to be talking about a new game, BattleTech. Now, actually it's not really a new game. Actually it's an incredibly old game. It's been around since the 80s and I think it might even be older than Warhammer. At the very least it's been around for about the same amount of time as Warhammer. And it's interesting because I've known about BattleTech for a long time. Whenever you go into a gaming store, there's always a BattleTech box somewhere, even if it's a dusty one at the back of the shelf. There's always BattleTech. It's always this game that's around, and I know loads of people that play it, and it's really popular. And also there's loads of video games around it. There's all sorts of cool stuff going on with BattleTech. But I've never really played it. In fact, I've never played it, the tabletop version at all. Like I said, I played the video games, but that doesn't really count. And so what we're going to be doing today, guys, is a total new newbie first impression of BattleTech. Okay, I recently got the chance to play a couple of games of it. I played a big game where I had like 5 mechs to control of all different sizes, and I played a little arena game, and I played on the hex-based system with the smaller game, and I played on a big free play sort of city style board, and it was really fun. And so what I want to do is do basically a first impression, and for anyone else out there who is thinking about trying out new game systems, maybe you like more action but it's not sci-fi enough, you want to try something else, maybe BattleTech is the game for you. And the point of this video is this is almost like a virgin first impression of this game system, okay? Like totally unbiased, no previous knowledge. I don't know which mechs are better, which mechs are worse, clan, Innisphere, I don't know anything about that really. I know they are things in the game, but that's what we're doing today. A total noob's first impression of BattleTech. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the scale and complexity of BattleTech. What were my first impressions of like the scale and complexity? Well, it's actually a relatively small scale game. It's not like 140k where you can turn up with like 360 models or 100 models or anything like that. It doesn't tend to be on that scale. It tends to be smaller scale. And bear in mind, I've only played 2 games, guys. But I played a really big, what was considered by BattleTech standards, a really big game where there were about 15 to 20 mechs on either side. And then I played a really small game, which was like an arena-sized one, where there was just 6 mechs on the battlefield. And that's the picture that you can see now. This picture you are seeing in front of you right now is me playing BattleTech, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but it was very much a smaller scale. And I've played it on the hex-based one, and I've played it on the free roaming one. So I've tried a little bit of both. And I would say that the scale is smaller than Warhammer 40k. In fact, you could say it's even smaller than Bot Action. However, it is not a simple game. And for some people, this will be a massive turn on. And I'll be honest, for some people, this will be a massive turn off. Because you only have a handful of models, relatively speaking, on the board, each one of those models tends to be loaded up with all sorts of different weapons and loadouts and abilities and just loads of different stuff. And just because the mechs are just like, they look like, oh, they're all just different walkers, there are so, you think Warhammer 40k has a lot of unit variety. There is so much unit variety in BattleTech. There are hundreds of different mechs, and each one of those mechs has dozens of variations. So just because you go up against, like the one I used, a Warhammer, doesn't mean when you go into your next game you're going to go up against the same Warhammer, okay? Like, just because you go up against a thug doesn't mean the next game you're going to go up against the same thug. You could go into 10 different games and face the same enemy mech each time, and every single time it would be a bit different, or sometimes even radically different. Okay, so there's a lot of complication here, and if you like to have the feeling of a complicated strategic kind of game, but it's also at the end of the day big mechs walking around stomping and shooting each other, then BattleTech's going to be really good for you. However, even on a small game like the one you see in front of you now, you're going to want to set aside, well, 2 or 3 hours. We had 6 players, each with just one mech doing an arena style deathmatch. We played for like 3 hours and we only got through like 5 turns. Okay, and bearing in mind BattleTech seems to go on for like 20 turns. Okay, now obviously we were like newbie and we were learning and all that kind of stuff, but even there were several veteran players at the table who were guiding us through. Okay, So my point is that this game is as complicated as Warhammer 40k. It will probably take as long as Warhammer 40k. That's my first impression. I could be wrong. Feel free to totally deride me down in the comment section, guys. This guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He's a friggin' idiot. Like, yeah, I am an idiot, and I don't know what I'm talking about. This is just a first impressions video. So that complication meant that even though it was small scale, there was always something going on. It was a lot to take in at once. And there were all sorts of different mechanics that were happening. But even though it was complicated, the complication meant that there was always something happening. So complication is and complexity is a double-edged sword. It can be a little overwhelming, but at the same time, it means that you're never bored in game. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is gameplay and like how roughly do the game mechanics work. So there's two ways you can play the game. As you can see here, like the board is broken up into hexes, or you can play it just like Warhammer, like it's a free roaming board, and you do use like inches instead of hexes to move. Okay, so there's multiple ways to play it. In terms of other sort of ways of playing it, it actually tends to use a 2d6 system rather than a d6 system. So when you roll to hit, you fire each weapon one at a time. So let's say a mech's got like 4 weapons. You don't roll 4 dice, 1 for each weapon. You roll the first weapon and you roll 2d6 for it, and that determines whether you hit or not. And there's loads of to hit modifiers. So people tend to start on like hitting on like a 3+ or 4+ on 2d6, which would, you know, by Warhammer 40k standards, you'd be like, well, you're hitting each other all the time. No, actually, there's loads of modifiers. Like if you move, it's -1 for you to hit. If the opponent moves, it's like another -1 or 2 to hit. Because like, you know, if both targets are moving, it's difficult to get those weapons on. There's like range distances, so long range, short range, medium range. There's terrains, all sorts of. So it's 2d6, but there's lots of modifiers to take into account. That's 2d6 to see where you see if you hit the enemy, and then you roll 2d6 to see which part of the mech you hit. Like it's not like Warhammer 40k where like you hit is a hit and it hits somewhere on the body. It's like no. You have to roll to see where you hit the enemy mech, and depending on where you hit them, you might blow an arm off so that they can't use the weapons on the arm anymore. You might blow a leg off or damage a leg so that they can't move as much. You know, there's 2d6s are involved, and they help determine not only if you hit but where you hit, and then like they have fixed amounts of damage though. Okay, so like an AC 20, an autocannon 20 always does like 20 damage. Like a medium laser always does 5 damage. So there's some randomness to it, but then there's like some set damage values as well, which allows there to be a little bit of excitement on the randomness, but then it's not you're constantly rolling dice. You know, there are some bits where it's like, right, yeah, you've just hit me, you've hit me there, and you've done that much damage. So there's dice rolling, but there's also these elements that help speed the game up as well, which is really, really handy. Another big thing that I found in BattleTech is that, you know, it's the first thing that I've noticed, is that you really have to be careful with like managing the heat on your mech. So you can't just be like sprinting all over the place, firing all your guns at full whack all the time, because eventually what happens is your mech's going to overheat, and when it overheats, either ammo's going to start cooking off or it's going to start shutting down. So every turn you have to keep track of how much heat you've generated, and at the beginning of the next turn you see how much heat your mech is able to like handle and dissipate. And it's different for each mech. So you might have some mechs which, you know, have got loads and loads of guns and armor, but they don't have very many heat sinks, which means they've got to be really careful at, you know, unleashing a full barrage. And so it's really interesting. You'll have some players that manage the heat really, really carefully, and they're like, I want to make sure that I've got, you know, a decent amount of firepower consistently throughout the game. And then you've got some players and some mechs which allow you to do this, where it's like, I just want to be able to go all in, and either I'm going to go in there and I'm going to really mess your mech up, and hell, I might even shut down for a turn or something, but that's fine. I'm kind of okay with that, because as long as I do enough damage to you, I'm happy that I've overheated, kind of thing. So it's a really interesting mechanic, managing heat, and I think it does add an extra layer, again, of sort of complexity, but also an extra layer of strategy. You can't just be going balls to the wall all the time. Well, you can do, nothing to stop you from doing that. But if you do that and you don't complete your mission or kill the enemy in time, you're going to really start finding yourself getting debilitated quite quickly. So I found the heat mechanic to be, you know, quite an interesting one, quite unique one. I'd not come across that before. I quite liked it, because it's like, you know, some mechs, you look at them and you're like, oh my god, that's totally broken, that's bullshit. But then suddenly the opponent isn't just using all the guns all the time because he'd overheat. And so it turns out that just because a mech's got loads and loads of guns doesn't mean that it's overpowered, because it might be that it's got loads of guns but it uses some for like clearing certain situations and some for like long range firing, but it very rarely shoots all of them. Another thing to mention, there is ammo in the game, so you've got to keep track of the ammo, which is kind of cool. So you'll have like some weapons, like if someone's got like two, or like the King Crab for example, which has got two auto cannon 20s, really, really big cannons, but it only has 20 shots. Now, if you're playing a 20 turn game and you've only got 20 shots between two guns, it means that each one of those guns only gets to fire 10 times. It means if you're not careful, by halfway through the game, you're out of ammo on your primary armament. So you might not want to do that. So it's really like cool how there's these extra layers of managing things. Again, there's always something going on. I said BattleTech wasn't a simple game. It's not. It is a complicated game. But it is also fun being like, oh, you know, when someone misses, they've got like 5 shots left, and they do a double burst with like their AC-20. It's like, I'm going to fire both, and they miss with both shots. You're like, oh, shit, son. Like, you just wasted like almost half of your remaining ammo, and we've still got like 5 turns to go. You know, so there's all sorts of cool stuff like that. There's also balance mechanics, like lasers don't have ammo, but they generate more heat. You know, guns don't generate as much heat, but they have finite ammo. There's some guns which you don't worry about, but you know, it's just interesting. There's all these layers. Like I said, it's complicated. There's a lot of admin. And so this kind of brings me on to the bits. I mean, I liked BattleTech. I really, really enjoyed it. But I would be remiss of me just to gush all over it and not to actually say there were some bits that I didn't like about the game. I'm still going to be playing it, don't get me wrong. But these are things that I didn't really enjoy, but for some people, they'd love this. There's 2 problems I had with it. There's a hell of a lot of admin. Okay, you've got to track your heat. You've got to track your ammo. Every time someone does damage to you, you've got to track which part of the body they did damage to and how much damage they did. And so even when like one side of your body might have lost all its armor, like then, you know, there's like the structure below that. And so there's loads of things you've got to track and keep track of. And so for a newer player, there was a hell of a lot going on. It also leads, but you know, for some people, they're going to love all of the admin. Like, there's people in my game group that fucking love the fact that BattleTech is complicated, that it's not just bloated, but it's actual complication and variety and strategy, and you've got to be managing all of these things. There's a lot of micromanagement. And so some people love that. For me personally, I am more of a macro management kind of player rather than a micro management kind of player. That's why I like playing horde armies. The other thing that I would say is that it feels a little too difficult to kill enemy mechs in the game. Now, I know some people will love that because especially in 40k there is a bit of a lethality problem. But I would say in BattleTech, maybe they've gone too far the other way. And there's almost a durability problem because I have unloaded onto an enemy. Like, I've had like a big assault mech and I have unloaded onto like a tiny little scout mech. And there's this one example that sticks out where I fired into the rear armor of an enemy scout mech with my assault mech and I got 5 critical hits. That's 5 things where like you're blowing off arms, you're blowing off legs, you're doing all sorts of stuff. I got 5 critical hits and essentially did no damage. Because I'd blown the armor off, I'd damaged the structure and all that kind of stuff. But I hadn't hit any critical systems. This particular mech was like this little spindly mech that didn't really have many vital systems. So even if you like damaged a leg or something, it wasn't the end of the world. And so I found and then when I played my second game, like I unloaded onto an enemy mech, I did loads of damage, I kept hitting the same side, it was really, really good, and it didn't die. And so I know maybe that sounds like heaven to people, but to me it feels like it's just so difficult to kill and without getting headshot stuff. It just feels really difficult to actually put a mech down. I know I've played like cumulatively like 20, 15, 20 turns of this game with all different mechs and systems. You know, yeah, only 2 games, but I've played like probably up to like 7-8 hours of BattleTech, and I haven't killed a mech yet, and I've only ever seen 1 mech die. Do you know what I mean? And so the problem I have with it is it feels like you're rolling all these dice, you're monitoring all these things, you know, you're engaging in all these game mechanics, and then you get to the end of it and it's like, well, all of that was kind of a waste because nothing actually happened. So I guess that would be my one criticism of it. My main criticism is that it feels like mechs don't really die. Now, I am again fully ready to accept that I don't know what the hell I am talking about. Okay, but that's just my first impressions, and I guess again I want to be really clear. I loved it. I really enjoyed the game. I'm excited to play some more of it and to learn more about like the lore, and maybe even get my own lances and all that kind of good stuff. I want to, you know, depending on how popular it is, I'd like to do some like channel battle reports and all that kind of good stuff. But you know, like I said, I'm really enjoying it. But those are my two negatives from my first impression. As a primarily Warhammer 40k player, these are the 2 things that turned me off about BattleTech. Problem is, it's a really fine line, because I imagine if mechs die too easily, then the game becomes rubbish. So, to be honest, if I had to pick one of 2 things, if it had to be too easy to kill something or too difficult, I'd still say make it too difficult. Because, but it's just something to be aware of when you're getting into it. You might have a long-range, full-blown slugging match, and no one actually loses any mechs. You know, that might happen. So that's it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to see more BattleTech content, let me know down in the comments section below. And if you've really enjoyed today's video, please consider giving it a like and a subscribe and a comment. I'll be totally honest with you guys, any extra interactivity you can give to this video really boosts it on the YouTube algorithm. And all praise the almighty YouTube algorithm. But if you've really enjoyed today's video and you want to see more BattleTech content, or you just want to go the extra mile and support my channel, please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. It is thanks to my channel members and patrons I'm able to do this gig full time. It's still mind-blowing that I now do this full time, but I'm really enjoying it. So massive thank you to all of my full-time supporters. And you know, if you want to see more varied games and stuff, I'm really exploring at the moment. I've tried some Bot Action, I've tried some Gaslands, I've tried some BattleTech now. If you want to see me play more games, then, you know, become a channel member, support me, and then let me know what other game systems you want me to try out. Now, I want to say a shout out and a big thank you to our latest channel members and Patreon supporters. And we've recently had a massive explosion of channel members. And that's thanks to people signing up. It's also thanks to the fact that during the live streams, people have been gifting channel memberships as well. So if you want to become a channel member, you should seriously consider joining one of the live streams, because more than likely, someone's going to gift you channel membership a month, which is absolutely fantastic. So massive thank you to everyone that's joined up. Massive thank you to everyone that has gifted channel membership. And here's a shout out for the latest channel members and patrons. So massive thank you to Lady Cubed, Yaku Kays, Carly Roxner, Thomas McDonald, Sean McGraw, True Blue Praetorian, Nuno, Stop with Camel, Coco Crafters, Greed Zero, Gordon Fenton, Mark Vyson, Lucas Williams, David Pigeon, Christopher Lagan, Michael Redkey, Aloha Edition, Conan Burns, Mark Hills, Chad Garr, Dator Pesty, Claw24, Robin Mankiller, Wyatt Tyson, Nicholas Erastazor, Mr. Jack, Former Crow, Mr. Pace, Adam Down, Stephen Less, Vescar, August Brown, Hammer1349, Across the Realms, Gromish, Matthias Hoffman, Heathen General, Marcus the Geiger Counter, Travis Wyckoff, Thomas Strang, Foxtail, Alex Chatter, Alex Exley, Lamau, Squared, Jeff Webber, Caesar, John Price, Ginger Steve, Craig Dunn, Thomas DeRaines, Garrett Perez, Chris Evans, Curtis Thompson, Revenger CZ, Joshua Durr, Ben Fodden, Roy Karras, Ultimate Drummer, Tanith Ghost 88, JC, Alvin Owl, James Loader, Brickhill 302, Kieran Spalding, Sean Kennedy, Talim, Icky Newman, Alex Smith, The I-Arm, Cavian Strike, Chris Cable, Guardsman Holden, Snoopy 42, The Cheese Master, Anna Redmond, Doom Guy, Dilko Dimitrov, Alex Brown, Gunther Grasshouse, Living in VR, Fighter Killer, Stephen Boller, Nomazetskill, EJ Fisher, Chairman Azeth, Anime Raptor 222, Yuan Chavez, Victor Wolanski, Spanner Fork, Burgundy VA, Jamie Warren, Bolt Action, Cadian Thunder, Name Warner, Simon, Alexi Trout, Kame Lamanzi, Tent, and Ian Hawkins. I also say thank you to the latest Patreon supporters as well. So thank you to Ferris, James Pickering, Zyleon, Maxazu, Naril, Alex Dengal, Jake Gank Istani, Ben Thorne, Ash K. Pines, Alon Harford, Marcus Roberts, and Timber de Jägermeister. And I also just want to slow down for a second there, guys, and say a personal, massive thank you to our top tier Patreon supporters. Massive thank you to Alex Stengal, John Stubbs, Nicholas Walsh, Swordfish Trombone, and August Varney for being signed up at the Lord General level or higher. That is the top tier of Patreon support. So massive thank you, guys. It's absolutely incredible the level of support these guys have been showing. And I also want to say a massive thank you to Diesel Fox, Ross Miller, and Tom Sutton for being signed up at the Commissar level. Every single one of these people has gone above and beyond the call of duty when it comes to supporting the Mordian Glory channel, and I am eternally grateful to both them and all of my channel members and Patreon supporters. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.